key point that you know that you have inside you, that you know that you feel for the people that are closest to you, that love always wins, no matter what, even when they're gone.
Valerie Bertinelli smiled on TV for 9 years straight, but no one knew she was living someone else's life. But behind closed doors, she was falling apart. By 20, she married a guy who was high on cocaine at their wedding and cheated consistently. She took caffeine pills to film her shows. Her second husband called her worthless. At 64, she finally broke. She stopped weighing herself, quit alcohol, and wrote a book exposing every lie. The girl next door was never who you thought. Valerie Bertinelli was born on April 23, 1960, in Wilmington, Delaware. But before she ever took her first breath, tragedy had already struck her family. Her older brother, Mark, had drowned at just 17 months old, 2 years before Valerie was born. Her parents, Nancy and Andrew, never fully recovered. Valerie grew up under the shadow of a child she never met. Her mother became obsessed with safety. Valerie wasn't just watched, she was protected like glass. Even in old family photos, her mother's hands are always on her, never letting go. Valerie didn't know why she felt the pressure to always be perfect, but she lived with it every day. She later learned that psychologists call it being a replacement child, and it shaped her life in ways no one could see from the outside. The family didn't stay in one place for long. From the time Valerie was born until she was 15, they moved 8 times across 4 different states. Her father worked for General Motors, and each promotion meant a new city: Oklahoma City, Pontiac, Wilmington, California, then back to Michigan, and finally, Los Angeles. Valerie never stayed in one school for more than a year and a half. She learned to make friends fast, fit in faster, and adjust to whatever crowd she landed in. She later called it her chameleon complex, changing herself to match the people around her. What started as a survival tactic became her greatest strength as an actress. She didn't just play roles, she became them, because she'd been doing it all her life. Everything changed on July 26, 1972. Valerie was 12. Her mom almost skipped the small talent showcase that day because it cost $50, money her dad thought was a waste. But they went anyway. Valerie sang "I Don't Know How to Love Him" in a $12 dress from Woolworths. She was the 47th performer out of 347 kids. Something about her voice and her presence felt different. Ruth Birch, a casting director in the crowd, saw it immediately. She said Valerie had the soul of someone much older. That night, 3 scouts approached Valerie's mom, but Birch was the one who signed her. That $50 event led to over $40 million in career earnings. It might have been the best investment in showbiz history. Just 3 years later, Valerie landed the role that would make her a star. But to get it, she lied. On March 15, 1975, she auditioned for One Day at a Time. She was still 15, but said she was 16. She even faked her birth certificate. Why? Because California's labor laws let 16-year-olds work longer hours without a full-time tutor. She wanted to be treated like the older girls, and she knew the only way was to cheat the system. It worked for 73 days. Then a production assistant spotted a mismatch in her school records. Valerie broke down and told the truth. Norman Lear, the show's creator, didn't fire her. He was impressed. He called her smart, bold, and ready. But the lie cost them over $127,000 in legal and union fines. That money came straight out of Valerie's future paychecks. Lear didn't just see talent in Valerie. He saw something familiar. During her final screen test on March 22nd, he asked her to pretend her character's parents were getting divorced. she started crying. Real tears. What no one knew was that her own parents were secretly considering a divorce at the time. Lear saw something broken in her, something he understood from his own childhood. He later wrote that she had the same haunted look he saw in the mirror as a kid. That moment forged a strange bond between them. Lear became overly protective. Some cast members felt she was getting special treatment. But it wasn't favoritism, it was recognition. He saw himself in her. When the show premiered in December 1975, Valerie was just 15. She became one of the youngest lead actresses on television. While other kids were making $2.10 an hour at summer jobs, Valerie was earning thousands per episode. Most teens saved up for prom dresses. Valerie was getting fan mail from across the country. But fame wasn't freedom. It was a cage. For 9 years, from 1975 to 1984, she was Barbara Cooper. And Barbara Cooper was always cheerful, always strong, always perfect. Valerie had to play that role on and off screen. The more the show succeeded, the more she felt trapped by the character everyone else loved. Behind the scenes, the show was heavy. It dealt with divorce, money problems, loneliness, stuff that hit Valerie hard. She was living those struggles in real life. Her family was falling apart quietly. But on screen, she had to smile through it. Every episode pushed her into emotional territory she didn't fully understand. And yet, she delivered, because she had no choice. Her co-star, Bonnie Franklin, became a kind of second mother. But it wasn't always easy. Franklin watched Valerie like a hawk. Her weight, her clothes, even her boyfriends. Valerie couldn't rebel like a normal teenager. She couldn't afford a public mistake. When she finally told Franklin she felt like she was falling apart, Franklin sent her to therapy. It was caring, yes, but also cold. Valerie's breakdowns were handled like problems on a production set. Fixable, manageable, but never truly personal. Her education was another casualty. California law only required 3 hours of school per day for child actors. Valerie got the minimum. She missed prom, missed graduation, missed everything that makes a teenager feel normal. While her friends were learning how to drive and gossiping in hallways, Valerie was memorizing scripts and posing for cameras. For 9 years, she didn't live a teenager's life. She lived a TV character's life. And when the show finally ended, she had to learn how to be real again. By her late teens, she was rich, but she didn't feel free. Barbara Cooper was happy. Valerie Bertinelli wasn't. Every paycheck reminded her that the world loved someone she was pretending to be. And the longer it lasted, the more she lost touch with her real self. Then there was her love story. It all started in August 1980. Valerie Bertinelli was just 20, already famous from her show One Day at a Time. Eddie Van Halen was 25, the wild guitarist lighting up rock stages across the country. They met backstage at a Van Halen concert in Shreveport, Louisiana. Eddie was mid-sentence talking to someone else when he spotted Valerie, and froze. Just like that, he ditched the conversation and walked straight up to her. He'd been carrying around a magazine clipping of her in his wallet for months. He kept telling his bandmates he was going to marry that girl. Turns out, he'd even tried sneaking backstage at her TV tapings before. But security turned him away. When they finally met, Eddie was so high on cocaine and so nervous, he could barely speak. His hands were shaking. He kept rubbing his nose. Still, he managed to ask her out. It wasn't just love at first sight. It was obsession finally coming to life. Their first date wasn't normal. They met at a coffee shop in West Hollywood at 2 p.m. and didn't leave until 10. 8 hours. Eddie did most of the talking. He chain-smoked, drank cup after cup of coffee, and confessed everything. He told her he'd been pleasuring himself to her pictures in TV Guide for over a year. He described detailed fantasies about their future, where they'd live, how many kids they'd have. He even admitted to doing cocaine right before meeting her to calm his nerves. Valerie didn't know whether to laugh, run, or be flattered. No one had ever wanted her that much. Then came the guitar. Eddie had brought a small acoustic with him and played a song he wrote about her. Before they'd even met, he sang about her smile, about how she made him feel alive. It was overwhelming. By April 1981, just 8 months later, Eddie proposed. He spent $25,000 on a custom diamond ring shaped like a guitar pick. But behind the gesture was chaos. He hadn't slept in 3 days. He was high and paranoid. He made Valerie check all the doors and windows before getting down on one knee. The proposal took over an hour. Eddie kept drifting into strange rants about the music industry and evil forces trying to tear them apart. Worst of all, he couldn't even choose one ring. He bought 3 and told her to pick the one that spoke to her soul. It wasn't romantic. It was disturbing. They got married on April 11th, 1981, at a big church in Westwood. 400 guests, stars everywhere. The event cost over $100,000, around $350,000 today. But the fairy tale cracked fast. Eddie was so drunk he couldn't remember his vows. He had to read them from a crumpled piece of paper. Valerie later admitted she nearly walked out mid-ceremony. And then, during their first dance, Eddie whispered something that crushed her. He told her he'd just done cocaine in the church bathroom before walking down the aisle. Then he asked if she wanted some too. Their wedding photos show her smiling. But it wasn't joy. It was shock. The honeymoon lasted 4 days. Barely. They flew to Hawaii. Valerie had dreamed of beach walks and sunsets. Instead, Eddie spent most of the time passed out or locked in the bathroom. He'd smuggled over $3,000 worth of cocaine in his guitar case. On day 3, Valerie found him unconscious with a bloody nose. She had to call hotel security. When he came to, he accused her of cheating with hotel staff. He screamed about conspiracies. He was paranoid and aggressive. That's when she learned he had been using cocaine every day for over 2 years, long before they met. The man she fell for wasn't real. He was the version shaped by drugs. The next 2 decades were a storm. Eddie's addiction only got worse. He drank, he smoked, he did drugs constantly. Valerie tried to help. She tried to understand, but nothing worked. In private, she was falling apart. She once said, "I hated the drugs and alcohol, but I never hated him. I saw his pain." She was just 21 when they married. She wasn't ready for the emotional weight that came with loving an addict. Eddie also cheated. The marriage started to crumble. Valerie has since admitted that after Eddie died, she rewrote their history in her head, made it sound more romantic than it really was. But the truth kept coming back. She said there was no real love, no care, no support, just chaos. They lost a pregnancy during the height of Eddie's addiction. That grief added another layer to their pain. Their son Wolfgang was born in 1991. But by then, their relationship was already deeply fractured. Valerie struggled on her own. After One Day at a Time ended in 1984, her career hit a wall. She acted in small TV movies and had 2 sitcoms, Sydney and Café Américain, that were quickly canceled. For years, she took whatever roles came her way. When she separated from Eddie in 2001, things got harder. She didn't ask for alimony, no child support. They just agreed to share costs for Wolfgang. But her money was running out fast. She was in her 40s, and jobs were scarce. That's when she became a spokesperson for Jenny Craig. It wasn't just about losing weight, it was survival. Behind closed doors, Valerie was struggling with more than just money. Her self-worth was shattered. She once said, "I always believed that if I gained weight, I was unlovable." Living with someone who was constantly high and absent had left deep scars. She rarely saw anything good in herself. She kept smiling for cameras, but inside, she was exhausted. After Eddie died in 2020, Valerie began to face the truth. She admitted they lived a very quiet life behind the public image. The media had painted them as opposites, the wild rocker and America's sweetheart. But neither of them was what they seemed. They tried to hide it, but the pain was everywhere. Valerie later confessed she clung to the fantasy of their marriage for too long. It took years to see that it had been toxic from the start. Valerie Bertinelli was 50 when she walked into the audition room for Hot in Cleveland. She hadn't been a regular on a TV show since Touched by an Angel ended in 2003. 7 long years had passed. The offers had dried up, the spotlight had faded, and now she was being asked to carry a new comedy series alongside Betty White, no less. Betty was 88, a living legend with over 60 years of experience. Valerie was terrified. She lay awake for nights before filming, worried she had lost her timing, her spark, her edge. She practiced constantly, sometimes recording her lines over and over just to get one laugh right. The thought of messing up in front of Betty White made her stomach twist. Then, on June 16, 2010, the show premiered. Hot in Cleveland didn't just survive, it exploded. It pulled in 2.5 million viewers an episode. TV land had never seen numbers like that. Valerie was suddenly back. But success didn't quiet her nerves. It only raised the stakes. Even though Betty was the oldest cast member, Valerie was seen as the mentor. She was the veteran, the one producers leaned on to set the tone. Jane Leeves and Wendy Malick rounded out the main cast, but it was Valerie who had the longest resume. That should have made her confident. Instead, it crushed her. She would slip away between scenes, hiding in her trailer, writing in her journal, trying to manage the panic attacks that came like waves. She arrived early to every table read, 2 hours early, scripts in hand, lines memorized, everything rehearsed. She didn't want to be caught unprepared, not even for a second. Just 2 months after the premiere, the show was renewed for a second season. That should have been good news, but all Valerie felt was pressure. More episodes, more eyes on her, more chances to fail. The first season had 23 episodes. That was just the beginning. Around that time, something unexpected happened. She met a man. His name was Tom Vitale. It was late 2010. Valerie had just finished a brutal 14-hour filming day. She went to a restaurant, Wolfie Cohen's Rascal House in Aventura, Florida, just to eat alone and unwind. Tom saw her sitting by herself and walked over to say hello. He wasn't from Hollywood. He was 44, 6 years younger than Valerie, and worked in finance. He had never been married. He wasn't interested in fame, just her. They had their first date 5 days later. 3 weeks in, they were inseparable. Tom represented everything her past didn't. Peace, stability, no drama. After a lifetime of chaotic relationships and a divorce from Eddie Van Halen in 2007, Tom was a breath of calm. By Christmas, they were already talking about marriage.
Why would you tear down someone who once loved you and you once loved So that negates all that love that you once had for each other.
Right.
On January 1st, 2011, Valerie and Tom got married in Malibu. Just 100 guests. Small, simple, and quiet. A sharp contrast to her first wedding, which had been a celebrity event with 300 people. This time, she wore a dress that cost $800, bought off the rack. No designer, no press. Even Eddie Van Halen came, along with their son, Wolfgang. Everyone smiled. But Valerie later admitted the wedding felt rushed. She had only planned it for 6 weeks. She didn't want to overthink it. She just wanted something that felt normal. She wanted to feel settled. She wanted to prove she could get it right this time. But life didn't slow down. If anything, it got harder. The second season of Hot in Cleveland was in full swing, and the schedule was brutal. Most days started before sunrise. Valerie had to be on set by 5:30 a.m. She wouldn't leave until 10 p.m. Episodes came fast, 20 to 23 per season. Way more than she was used to. She needed energy, and coffee wasn't cutting it anymore. That's when she turned to caffeine pills. 400 to 600 milligrams a day. That's like drinking 6 strong cups of coffee. Then came the energy drinks, Red Bull and Monster. Sometimes 4 cans in one day. Then, Adderall. At first, it was prescribed to help her focus. But soon, it became her crutch. She relied on it to get through scenes, to stay sharp, to be funny. No one knew. She kept it all hidden. Her assistant was told to keep her trailer stocked. She timed everything. When to take the pills, when to drink the energy drinks, so she'd peak at just the right moment for filming. It worked. Her timing was flawless. Her jokes landed. But she knew the truth. She was performing under pressure, powered by chemicals, trying not to crack. Valerie Bertinelli was once known mostly as a beloved sitcom star, but everything began to shift on August 8, 2015. That's when Valerie's home cooking premiered, marking the beginning of a surprising new chapter in her life. It wasn't just a one-season experiment. The show became a hit and lasted 14 seasons with 157 episodes. She also started co-hosting Kids Baking Championship with Duff Goldman the same year. Suddenly, Valerie wasn't just an actress. She was a Food Network regular. And with that came a big payday, up to $750,000 per year, just from hosting. Her warm, personal style on Valerie's home cooking made viewers feel like they were in her kitchen. She cooked for her friends and family. She smiled, laughed, and opened up. It felt real, and that's what made it work. The show even earned her 2 Daytime Emmy Awards. But by 2022, things had started to change. Food Network merged with Warner Media, and priorities shifted. Educational cooking shows were out. High-stakes competition shows were in. Valerie didn't like the change. She wrote online that she missed the days when the network taught people how to cook. She said it felt like it wasn't about learning anymore. By 2023, Valerie's home cooking was canceled. And just like that, the show that had given her new life was over. Behind the scenes, Valerie's personal life was falling apart. Her marriage to Tom Vitale, which began in 2011, had grown toxic. She later said he had narcissistic traits and was emotionally abusive. In May 2022, she filed for divorce. Tom fought back, trying to throw out their prenup and asking for $50,000 a month in support. At the same time, she was still filming Kids Baking Championship. She called that period the apex year of hell. It lasted 8 painful months, but she didn't quit. She showed up to work, smiling on camera, while quietly breaking down off-screen. In November 2022, the divorce was finalized. Valerie paid Tom $2.2 million, plus another $500,000 earlier that year. When it was over, she posted online that it was the second-best day of her life. Her words were honest and raw. She had been crushed, but came out stronger. She said she'd learned more about her own strength, patience, and self-worth during that time than ever before. Even though Valerie was earning millions, she was fighting a silent battle. Her relationship with food had been twisted since childhood. A fifth-grade teacher once poked her belly and told her to keep an eye on that. That stuck with her. Later, when she became a Jenny Craig spokesperson, she admitted to starving herself and working out twice a day. By her 60s, she had enough. She stopped weighing herself and began rejecting diet culture altogether. In 2023, she wrote, "This is a 150-pound body on a 5'4" frame. I don't weigh myself anymore." She didn't care what the charts said. She wanted peace. Her 2024 cookbook, Indulge, reflected this new mindset. It was about enjoying food, not fearing it. Her time with Food Network didn't end well. In December 2021, she signed a new deal, but just a year later, she was dropped from Kids Baking Championship in January 2024. Some said her team asked for too much money. Others claimed the network never made her an offer at all. Either way, she was out, and it hurt. She had once said the show saved my life during her divorce. Losing it felt like losing a lifeline. Food Network had changed. Valerie missed the days of Rachel Ray and Ina Garten, shows that taught people how to cook. But the new bosses wanted excitement, drama, and fast-paced competitions. Then came the grief she never expected. Eddie Van Halen, her ex-husband, and the father of her son Wolfgang died on October 6, 2020. He was only 65. Valerie and Wolfgang had been by his side every day in the hospital, along with Eddie's second wife and brother. That morning, Wolfgang called her and said, "His breathing has changed." She rushed to the hospital. Eddie's last words were, "I love you," to both Wolfgang and Valerie. Then he was gone. The loss hit her harder than she could explain. People online even criticized her, accusing her of grieving too much for an ex. But she admitted that she had romanticized their past. Even though the marriage had been full of drugs, cheating, and pain, she still felt like she had lost a soulmate. The divorce from Tom Vitale was brutal. They had met in 2004, married in 2011, and separated, according to Valerie, in 2019. Tom said it was 2021. That timeline mattered in court. Valerie had released a best-selling memoir in 2022 called Enough Already, and the money it made became part of the legal fight. Tom challenged their prenup. He wanted spousal support. Valerie didn't back down. She later said she stayed too long, not just in this marriage, but in both of her marriages. She believed that if she loved hard enough, it would be enough. It wasn't. The pain didn't stop there. In 2016, her father Andrew died. He was a kind man, an Army vet, a General Motors engineer, and a consultant who helped build the Channel Tunnel. But around 2014, he started having small heart attacks. Then a big one hit while he was already at a doctor's office. After that, he and Valerie's mother moved into assisted living. Andrew's death was the beginning of a cascade of losses. People close to Valerie kept passing away. The grief just piled up. As if that weren't enough, menopause took a heavy toll on her. It started around age 56 and dragged on for nearly a decade. The symptoms were intense. Brain fog made her forget lines on Hot in Cleveland, leading to bloopers she now laughs about. But it wasn't funny at the time. The emotional crashes were worse than anything she had ever felt. Now, 64, she still doesn't feel like herself. She once asked her doctor what was going on with her mental health. The doctor said, "I don't know." That answer didn't help, but it made her realize she wasn't alone. She began talking openly with other women, hoping her honesty could help someone else feel less alone. Valerie Bertinelli had spent decades convincing the world she had a picture-perfect life. She was America's sweetheart, married to rock legend Eddie Van Halen, smiling on red carpets, selling weight loss programs, and appearing on magazine covers. But in 2022, everything changed. Her memoir, Enough Already, shattered that image with brutal honesty. She wrote that she had fallen in love with Eddie at just 20, but their relationship quickly spiraled into a mess of drugs, alcohol, and cheating. For years, she clung to the illusion that they were soulmates. She even admitted that she had turned their marriage into a fantasy in her mind, something far removed from what actually happened. They divorced in 2007, but Valerie kept pretending everything had been fine. When Eddie died in 2020, she was still so caught up in that old dream that she placed herself in the role of the grieving widow, even though they hadn't lived together in 2 decades. Fans were stunned. For 25 years, she stayed married to a man who made her feel unwanted. And yet, in public, she played the role of the happy wife. That level of raw vulnerability hit readers hard. It wasn't just another celebrity tell-all, it was a painful look at how fame, addiction, and denial can twist reality. As if that wasn't enough, Valerie took things even further by walking away from something else that defined her for years: her weight. At 64, she made a decision that shocked almost everyone. She gave up dieting. She stopped weighing herself. She stopped chasing that perfect number. This came from a woman who had been a Jenny Craig spokesperson, had worn a bikini on national television at 48, and had lost 50 pounds to land on People magazine's cover back in 2009. Behind the scenes, though, she had been stuck in a cycle of obsession and restriction. She was always trying to lose the same 10 pounds, over and over. After writing her memoir, something changed. She stopped stepping on the scale and said her mental health improved almost overnight. It turned out that all those years of dieting hadn't brought her peace. In 2023, she joined Dry January and quit alcohol. The weight started coming off naturally, but she wasn't focused on that anymore. By 2025, she had lost around 30 to 40 pounds, not by dieting, but by healing. She proved that true change came when she stopped obsessing over numbers and started listening to her body.